tonight is Erik Claster. Erik is the founder of the BSI, the Boy Scouts of Israel, and he's also the Scoutmaster of Troop 61, the first BSI troop. So, Erik, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, and can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me, and happy to see a lot of familiar faces here from my previous scouting career in the US, and of course, since being here in Israel, part of BSI. I'll start just a little bit with me. As you can hear, I have a Midwestern Overland Park, Leawood, Kansas accent. I grew up in Leawood, Overland Park, and I did my scouting in Troop 61. Some of you might know that's Dr. Khan. Dr. Norman Khan here is a home troop. He was my scoutmaster for a good portion of time as well. And know some of you other people that I've met through the Jewish Committee on Scouting. I happen to have been a beneficiary of the Jewish Committee on Scouting through my scouting career as a youth. I am I guess, generational scouter, third generation, now fourth generation, my children as well in scouting. And well, what was BSA, now Scouting America. I made Aliyah about 25 years ago, and volunteered actually with the Tzofim Yehudim, the Hebrew Scouts, as they're translated as, or probably the Jewish Scouts, for about 2 years before I went to the army here in Israel, and still serve for the last 23 years in infantry combat, including the current war. And after volunteering in the Tzofim, I decided that when I finished the army and when I started a family, I wanted to provide the kind of scouting experience that I had had growing up in Kansas in the United States for my children and for other interested youth here in Israel. And as we all know, life is what happens in the meantime. Fast forward about a decade or so, and I had children that were of scouting age, and they had heard all of my scouting stories, and they had reminded me of a promise that they had heard me saying many times around the dinner table, that one day I would provide for a similar scouting experience. And sure enough, in 2019, we founded BSI. We kind of used a similar moniker to what was BSA, now Scouting America. We're going to have to figure that out as well. But we go by BSI, which was initially Boy Scouts of Israel, because our first troop in Israel was in fact Boys Troop, Troop 61, which we coined to pay homage to my home troop, the first troop in Israel being Troop 61. And this was a boys troop. And just a little bit about BSI before I talk about Troop 61 more specifically. We founded BSI as an Amutah in 2019. And our board is made up of scouters here in Israel, the US, and Canada, kind of an international board. We're an independent scouting organization. So while we have good relationships with, Scouting America, we're not officially part of the Transatlantic Council. And while we have good relationships with the Tzofim, we're not officially part of the Israeli Federation of Scouting yet. Our program, let's just say in its founding documentation, is agnostic. So we are not religiously oriented, very similarly to Scouting America. We do not have separate troops or separate scouting organizations for the different religions. Like in the United States, the scouting troop takes on the flavor of its local community. And whether that be a mixed community of religious and not, Jewish and not, Arab and not, Muslim, Christian, Cherkessian, Druze, whatever it might be, this is the pledge of our organization, not just to have good relationships between the different peoples of Israel, but to actually completely infuse them like kind of scouting that I grew up in the United States. Our programming today is mostly in English. Probably about 75–80% of our scouts are Olim, scouts that have made Aliyah, or children of Olim that have made Aliyah from mainly English-speaking countries, but not exclusively. Probably about 15 to 20% of our scouts are what you would call Sabras, Israelis that don't have any particular connection to Anglo countries or English-speaking countries. And this is one of our goals to expand that in the coming years, which I'll speak about soon. Our program, from its inception in 2019, established itself as a highly inclusive program. We have an extensive committee that deals with inclusion policies for anything that would include inclusion, whether that be different types of extra support scouts, or whether it be different types of homes, different types of emotional or physical issues. Our program probably has about 40% special needs needs, quote unquote, or extra support scouts. And this is something that we've become a go-to for our local communities. In fact, schools oftentimes will suggest scouts to come to us if they're having certain issues and what they call here special classes or smaller classes that are for special needs scouts, something we're very proud of. Our program is very much inspired by, like I said, close ties with Scouting America. In fact, we use the current Scouting America handbook for both our boys and our girls. We use all of the requirements up to date and the merit badges and everything from Scouting America, as well as the online training. Our leadership does take part in Wood Badge training in the United States for the last couple of years, which we're really excited and happy about. And as you'll see in some of our pictures, our uniforms and patches will probably be familiar to a lot of you, judging by the videos here that will remind you of the 60s and 70s era BSA uniforms. And that's because we needed to get our hands on a bunch of uniforms quickly, and vintage BSA uniforms on eBay happened to be a honeypot that we were able to get a hold of, and we became very quickly one of the biggest buyers, aside from Steven Spielberg's team for his movie that he had that portrayed himself and his scouts as well. And I'm actually in touch with the person that did the costuming, and we're buying a lot of their extras after post production, because those are the ones that we use, because of course, as everyone knows, vintage is cooler. And for us, it's cost effective for us, and we have kind of an ongoing swap going for our troops. We are in the process of putting together a new uniform, which is exclusively ours. But until that happens, we're borrowing the old BSA uniforms from the 60s and 70s. We participate in a lot of also high adventure through Scouting America, which I'll talk about later, which we have in the past. We plan to also very soon in the next coming years, which I will touch on. And of course, as I mentioned, we are a not-for-profit registered in Israel, which is called an Amuta. And our board, which we have an advisory board and our signatory board, are based in Israel, US, and Canada. So Troop 61 was our flagship troop, is our flagship troop. It was our first kind of proof of concept to see if this type of scouting would work in Israel, quote unquote. And it started with my two sons, who are now 19 and almost 18. They're the ones on the far right over here, holding their totemship cards, which was one of their first things that they accomplished. And this was essentially us sitting around my dining room table, going through old scout books, and me bringing a couple of old uniforms and patches in. And very soon, as you can see in the center photo, they brought a couple of friends, and we had to get more uniforms and mule them in with people coming to visit. We developed our own neckerchiefs, which were essentially replicas of my home troop in Overland Park, Kansas, Troop 61, and patches and such. And after a couple of months later, as you can see in the bottom left, friends brought more friends, and we were in double digits of scouts. So we asked the local municipality here in Efrat, where our home troop is based, if they could provide a location for us, and sure enough, they did. We were there for about 3 more months until our numbers doubled again. This was the pattern. It's been the pattern ever since 2019 for our flagship troop, Troop 61. In early 2021, as you can see partially by these silly COVID masks that everyone was wearing, still can't believe all that. Hard to believe that was on us as well. We were able to survive that and actually grow during that period as well with all of the challenges. And we had 20 plus scouts in early 2021. As you can see here in the bottom left, we moved from a small office from the local municipality to one of the local high schools, which we meet in their social hall, which we have ever since for the last 4 years. We haven't quite filled that up yet, but we're working on that. But as you can see, our numbers were growing significantly, as were our activities in Troop 61. Troop 61 has been our kind of, again, proof of concept, where we've dealt with a lot of the growth, the youth leadership, the outdoorsmanship, the scoutcraft, and all those things, really testing hands-on what is transferable here in Israel, and so far, so good. Locally, we've attracted a lot of attention in the Jerusalem and Beit Shemesh area in terms of our program. We've been drawing from a lot of those communities. While we started in Efrat, we now service the greater Jerusalem area, as well as Beit Shemesh. We have scouts that come in from Jerusalem and Beit Shemesh and Efrat. And we've served in a lot of the local ceremonies this was Yom Ha'atzmaut, which we have coming up again this week. And we are the go-to organization that local municipalities ask for things like delivering letters and flowers to Holocaust survivors or to bereaved families during this very difficult week, as Iran iterated as well. Just in the far bottom right here, we have a first aid demonstration that we did with a kind of a live enactment of a company that works with the military here and trains them for, I guess you could say, live action with all kinds of technology and props for first aid in emergency situations. We had that with Troop 61 last week, which was a head-on car collision with all sorts of realistic props and such. And that was quite the experience as well. And we're doing a lot of that very intensive, I guess you can call it first aid training as well as scouts do. Moving on, with the proof of concept and the success of Troop 61 and following my participation in Wood Badge 2.5 years ago, my ticket being to start the girls program here in BSI. Sure enough, that's what we did. And in early 2023, spring of 2023, we established our first girls troop, Troop 49. And in the similar fashion to Scouting America, we felt like we didn't have to go through 100+ years of all the trials and tribulations. We could go ahead and just start off where they're leaving off, or they're continuing now, and established our first girls troop, which is identical in programming to our boys program. And of course, they developed their own troop number, which is Troop 49. Again, not number 1, but 49 being the year that Henrietta Sold made Aliyah to Israel. She became kind of the poster woman and hero for this troop and their establishment. And those that know Henrietta Sold had a very long and distinctive Zionist career, which happened actually much later in her life. And she made Aliyah in 1949, and of course is the founder of Hadassah International as well as the Hadassah Hospital. As you can see in their symbol, in their logo, Troop 49 includes the Hadassah kind of rings, wreaths on the sides as well. Our girls troop was an interesting project. We did about 6 months of kind of market research to see what girls wanted to do, what sort of program were they interested in, what didn't they want to do, what were they looking for. And as you can see here, we started off, unlike the boys, the girls came in with a vengeance. We started off with 13 girls in our very first week, and they have not looked back since. We also same troop services, the greater Jerusalem area, including Beit Shemesh. We have scouts that come in from all of those, and we service those as well. It has been a very interesting experience seeing both of these troops kind of progress alongside each other and observing how different they are and how special they are and how they scout. Troop 49 today has almost 20 scouts, 5 trained adult leaders, including Wood Badge, and of course a strong troop committee as well. They're, like I said, they're doing all of the same programming that the boys troop is doing, everything. They wouldn't settle for anything less. We are blessed to have a great core of volunteers for our girls troop as well that are helping at the troop committee level as well as the adult leadership level, and they're soaring. So our troops essentially, in terms of activity, what are they doing? All of our BSI troops meet once a week, and they have instruction activity. It's about a 2-hour meeting, as most scouting programs do. 1 to 2 service projects or community service projects a month, which is actually quite a bit. Allows for different opportunities for our scouts. If they have other things they're doing, other activities, they miss one, they can always have a chance to do one, because our program is very heavily based on service, as all of you know. We go on outdoor camping trips at least once a month. This is something that we do, put the outing in scouting, as we like to say. We like to get out and have them apply their skills that they're learning in their weekly meetings. And we usually alternate months, the girls and the boys. So 1 month the girls will do their overnight camping trip, and then 1 month the boys will. Unfortunately, as some of you might know, we don't have weekends here in Israel, really. We just have Shabbat, kind of Friday afternoon until Saturday, which is sometimes tricky to camp on Shabbat if you're Sabbath observant to a certain degree. So we don't have Sundays here. So we oftentimes will leave on Thursdays. The scouts will miss school, and we speak to the teachers, and they're responsible. The teachers happen to love this, so the administrators that they're going outdoors, getting some informal education. And we do camping usually on Thursday mornings until Friday afternoons, or sometimes even Wednesdays if you want to get an extra night in, which we just did this past week. We went down to the Machtesh crater and spent 2.5 nights out after the Passover break to get outdoors. We have different degrees of outdoor camping based on the skill level, and we I'll speak about more of that later, but we have different age groups, obviously, similar in the patrols and kind of venturing that are a bit more challenging and high adventure. We have troop committee meetings. Both troops have very strong troop committees, again, of volunteers. Everyone are volunteers. No one in BSI is currently employed. This is all volunteer, which is equally impressive. Both troop committees meet once a month. Neither of the troops have a charter organization. They're both chartered by BSI. The additional troops, which I'll get to here in a moment, which we're looking to expand to in 2025, will in fact use a very similar model to Scouting America in terms of having a charter organization sponsoring them. More about that a bit later. The PLC, the Patrol Leaders Council, the youth leadership also meet at least once a month to plan their month-to-month activities. And we occasionally do have BSI-wide activities. For example, we had a campaign during the war. A lot of the local municipalities were not able to utilize a lot of the Arab and Palestinian workers, Israeli citizens or not, because of the situation. It was very tenuous. And so unfortunately, a lot of the municipalities had a big garbage problem, not collection, but specifically in the streets. And so our scouts took to the streets and answered the call in different municipalities. And that was a BSI-wide activity for both of our troops, as well as BSI as an organization. And of course, we have adult and youth training, which is usually once a quarter. The youth is more active in that, of course, and our adults, as I mentioned, are doing advanced training, including Wood Badge in the United States. We have an extensive merit badge program with BSI, which is, of course, challenging on the one hand because we don't have the resources that we have in the United States in terms of districts and councils and so on and so forth. But what we found is we do have a lot of olim, a lot of people who have even retired to Israel, who had sometimes lengthy scouting careers and are more than happy to be at least merit badge counselors, if not contribute in other ways. So we actually, thankfully, have a great merit badge program, offer locally all of the Eagle required badges that you all are familiar with, and probably about 30 others. We also participate in online merit badge programs through different councils in the United States, which is a fantastic technological convenience for some of the merit badges we don't offer. Here you can see some of the wonderful merit badges that are being offered to our troops by our wonderful scouters. This past year in 2024, we had a watershed event. We had our first 3 Eagle Scouts produced from our program, which was very exciting. Again, as I mentioned, we are using the same rank model as Scouting America. One of the things that we're currently assessing going forward is if we're going to keep that or if we're going to change it or adapt it, in addition to the patch design, but also the names. But for now, we are using the classic Eagle Scout design and rank attainment. And here are some pictures from the Eagle Board of Reviews and the Court of Honor. In fact, the far right is a Eagle Court of Honor for our first 2 Eagle Scouts. The one on the right is my son, my oldest son. Both of these Eagle Scouts are now serving in the IDF. This is a first for us as well. Unlike Iran's program, we don't have that much history. So this for us was a very big deal. And so far, the reports that we're getting back is that not only are they highly prepared, they're the immediate leaders in their military groups that they're serving in, of course, due to their character, but of course, due to their scouting careers as well. They've already spoken much about that, and we're happy to have them come back and speak to our scouts about that. We're very proud and supportive of them. We actually have an independent Eagle Scout committee just on the side there, which is through BSI, and they're based in the United States, and they serve essentially as, what you would do in the States, sending it down to Irving, Texas. We do the same thing here through our program with an independent committee that's not part of our board or part of our local troops or councils. As I mentioned, we have great relationships, I guess, officially and unofficially with Scouting America. My scouting connections, which are continuing to be deepened by my activities in the United States, allows me to be friends with all kinds of really great scouters in the US, all over the US, and allow us to have wonderful Zoom sessions with different scouts from different troops all over the US and the world. Here, in fact, we had a session a couple of months ago with a very close friend of mine, a scouter, Jeffrey Malden, who is a scouter in Texas, who I met through Wood Badge and the Jamboree, who works for NASA and gave a wonderful presentation to both of our troops, as you can see here over Zoom, which was very interesting. We have ongoing Zooms with different patrol leaders councils, different scouts, a lot of scouts in the United States. In fact, just last week, there was a troop in Chicago that needed for citizenship in the world to have a conversation with international scouts from a different country. So the scoutmaster that I know there called me up and said, can they hop on? And sure enough, they did on Sunday. So we do a lot of this. And again, the English-speaking nature of a lot of our scouts makes this easily communicative for both sides and a great way to share what we're doing here and about Israel as well. As I mentioned, we do participate in a lot of the adult training in the United States. This is me participating in Wood Badge at SBR, Summit Bechtel Reserve, in late 2022. And again, like I said, a lot of these scouters I'm still in touch with, and our troops do Zooms and such. When our scouts go to the US to visit family or whatever it might be, they have a very warm welcome to their home troops to experience what their troops are doing. Another watershed event that we had in 2023 is we sent a contingent of five of our scouts, seven of our scouts plus two of our adult leaders, including myself and my assistant scoutmaster, who's second from the left over here, to the National Scout Jamboree. And as it's posted here, and I went to the National Scout Jamboree in Fort AP Hill in 30 years before that, and never did I think that I would be leading a contingent of Jewish scouts from Israel, from an organization that I helped to found representing Israel. So that was really fun and wonderful opportunity for us. As you can see here, we had a blast representing Israel. I also, as I mentioned, again, I'm constantly going and trying to up the training game for myself as the executive board and BSI. Right after I finished my reserve duty in July, I hopped on a plane and went to get some fresh air. In Philmont, I went and did a CDC course with some fantastic scouters. So you might recognize here in Philmont. And not only was it fantastic for me in terms of hopefully soon leading Wood Badge here in Israel for our leadership and for anyone in Israel that wants to do this type of Wood Badge, I also got to kind of, recharge my batteries after a almost 10-month stint of reserve duty in the war. So what's next for BSI? In the coming year, we are looking to take our model and expand it to other cities with, I guess you could say, low-hanging fruit, i.e., pockets of English-speaking Olim from different Anglo countries, not exclusively, but of course, that's our lowest hanging fruit. In these types of cities, Beit Shemesh, Tel Aviv, Zichron Yaakov, Ra'anana, Herzliya, we have lots of people that know about our program and are starting to put together families that are interested, and we are looking to expand our program to those cities as well, and BSI will support them in everything in that regard. We're looking also to continue to participate in high adventure, both in Israel as well as in Europe and especially the United States. We will, please God, be sending a contingent to the National Scout Jamboree in 2026, as well as to the World Jamboree in Poland in 2027. We are, of course, looking perhaps to, if we can swing it, again, expense, as Iran mentioned, is always an issue. If we can swing to tack on to either of those, a trip to Philmont, Northern Tier Sea base, those are very much on our radar. They have been for a while, but we only have, certain number of summers and certain number of budget for our scouts for their fundraising to do these things. So hopefully we will get to do those either as an add-on to any of the next 2 summers in Jamboree events, or perhaps in place of. And of course, Wood Badge has become a really great source for us to get our adult leadership trained. I'd say probably 90% of our adult volunteer scouters do not have a history in scouting. They might be familiar with scouting from a family member or from growing up, but they were not actually in scouts like I was for the last 30 years. So sending them to Wood Badge, the Cadillac, as you would say, of adult leadership scout training has been a huge booster for us. And we are currently figuring out ways to send more of them to Wood Badge, both in the United States as well as the Transatlantic has every summer in Camp Freedom in Germany. So we want to continue to do that as well, because it is a huge boost for our program.